The following is a presentation of the Belly Up Sports Media Network.
DJ Baller, you killed this.
Well, folks, I don't know how much longer you'll be seeing that intro as our season's coming to a close here soon. The new year rolls around here, and it feels like just yesterday we started the season on this channel, or on the show, and just another season almost in the books here. So Tyler and I are both excited, both here to give you guys the update from last week's rivalry matchups, of course, and where we kind of stand. And then, of course, talking about our upcoming championship week matchups for the conference champions. And ultimately, we'll talk about who we think our final CFB picks are and our prediction for what's going to happen this weekend, because ultimately, this is the last weekend for anybody to make a claim that they belong in the top four. So this is kind of their last chance. I mean, if anybody wants to jump in that's not in that fourth spot, they really need to stake a claim and also cross their fingers that maybe one of those teams in the top four loses in their conference championship, which a lot of them are heavily favored. So we'll jump right into that. First, little curveball. We're skipping our AP risers and fallers this week because it's just so late, and I feel like the only thing at this point that matters right now is that CFB poll. That's where you're going to get your playoff rankings. That's where you're going to get your bowls. That's where we're going to get everything. So we're going to react to that top 25. Tyler, biggest surprise for you outside of the top four, but inside the top 15?
Not really many surprises to know. You know, we saw Louisville drop 4 spots after their loss to Kentucky. That was definitely bizarre. I did not see that coming. But you know, it's rivalry week. Oregon State was really the only faller outside of that. You know, I definitely can respect that drop, but that was not a close game. Oregon has looked like one of the top 4 teams in college football. We'll see if they can take care of business tonight against Washington, against Pac-12. That just feels like a win and you're in scenario. And then the only other faller that you see, Kansas State, they got the home loss against Iowa. So not really any surprises. I definitely respect Liberty being in there at number 24, what they've done. We'll see if they can finish off the season 13. And, you know, looking like Chadwell is staying there for now, the way that the coaching carousel is just taking all these group of 5 coaches. So really outside of that, I think really what their committee is at. You know, my main question out of this was, where was Ohio State going to drop? And they dropped to number 6. Realistically, I think that if you're a Ohio State fan, you're out of the playoff. You would need absolute chaos because you really look ahead of you. You know, you got Washington, Oregon. That's going to take care of itself. Drop probably below you. And then you have Florida State. Florida State feels like the outlier to absolute chaos happening, because if Florida State loses, then that's where you get some chaos. But really behind them, you see Texas and Alabama. Those are 2 teams that have an opportunity to really jump Ohio State. But I think if you're Ohio State, you're pretty much locked, though, for the New Year's Six, the way that you're sitting.
Yeah, you made a good point. You know, Ohio State's chance to make the playoff, you know, at the end of the day, probably is going to come without either Michigan losing to Iowa or Washington losing to Oregon. And if Washington loses to Oregon tonight and Florida State loses to Louisville, that's where I think Ohio State can get back in as the 4th team. Only because if Washington loses, you're going to make a claim for Oregon to be the 3rd team in the country. and then with Florida State losing, they would be out, and your fourth team would be Ohio State in there, which ultimately it could happen. I mean, you could have a scenario where it's Georgia, Michigan, Oregon, and Ohio State. Um, it's entirely possible, but you're talking about Oregon having to take care of business and Florida State losing. And I think that's why they say, that Ohio State still has that 8% chance to make the playoff right now, kind of right there in that 8 to 10 ratio. Um, but I mean, big help for them would be if Iowa beat Michigan. I mean, that would be crazy to see, but there still is a sliver of hope there for them. But no, I agree with you. Louisville's performance definitely discredits them coming into this weekend. I think that it definitely makes it a little tougher for them to go and play this game. Um, they're not traveling as far as Florida State is, but it's at the end of the day, I feel that Florida State probably is going to get that job done. I feel like they're a team that they're going to grind through it type thing. And Louisville's kind of the same way. Um, but yeah, I don't have too much of a reaction with the top 15 teams. NC State kind of worked their way back into the poll again. They jumped up there 3 spots with the help of Oregon State losing and a couple other things. But NC State's going to have a decent bowl game. I think that they're going to be okay. I think early on in the season it looked rough. I mean, they lost at home to Notre Dame pretty bad, and I thought that it was all downhill from there. And NC State, I thought, had a chance to beat Notre Dame early in the season, but just never panned out. Rest of the team's kind of moving up 1 to 2 spots here and there. So yeah, not too much going on. Biggest faller though, K State drops all the way to 25, 6 spots they dropped. So it's a little disappointing for them, finishing right there at the top 25 mark, or right there at 25th, last in the poll. But still, I mean, you're considered one of the top 25 teams in the country, so there's nothing to you know feel bad about being at 25 there for them. But moving, of course, into our games, you mentioned the 2 games that are tonight that highlight tonight. You have undefeated Liberty playing at home because, of course, there's no neutral site for uh, Group of 5. So you've got Liberty playing at home as the 24th team in the country. They are 12-0. Let's see if they can close it out with a 13-0 season. Uh, New Mexico State, on the other hand, New Mexico State actually is, they're a tough football team, and I'm very impressed with, you know, how they've handled this year. They kind of came out of the gates shaky. You lose to UMass to start the season. I mean, you don't just lose to UMass; you give up 41 points for UMass to start the season. Kind of buckle up and everything. After that, but it's tough to think that this team lost to Hawaii 2 on the road. I mean, your 2 losses are to and I think that's why they're not going that's why they wouldn't be ranked in the situation that we're in. Any other time, I feel like this team would be ranked, being 10-3 because they played that extra game from week 0. But I feel that it was kind of one of those things where that loss to Mass is really tough. Um, and then, of course, losing to Hawaii, I mean, that's rough too. I mean, it is a tough road trip for you to have something like that happen. Uh, but those losses are really tough. Their only loss all year long comes, the biggest loss of the year comes against Liberty. Liberty was playing at home. This is just a rematch from earlier this season. Liberty's at 10.5. Give me the Flames. I just don't think that anybody's going to be able to stop them to this point, and nobody has. I mean, you win 12 games in a row, you don't lose a game all year. I feel like this is kind of the biggest moment for them, biggest moment for this school in, I want to say, their history. For you to complete the undefeated season. I don't care if you're a Group of 5 school, the smallest Group of 5 school. I don't care if you're D2 or top of the totem pole. Power 5 D1. It really doesn't matter. I think that if they complete the 13-0 season, that is the ultimate goal for them, and a huge boost for their confidence in the next coming years and recruiting for the school. A very, very small
Yeah.
school. So, a lot of great news coming their way, and I think that they're gonna get a lot of good little players coming through there. So yeah, Liberty, I'm gonna take the 10.5. I think they do it. So I'm gonna go. Let's go 35-21.
Yeah, I think that this is a big opportunity for Liberty, and there's still an outside opportunity to get into that New Year's Six bowl game. You just have to be a SMU fan. You got to take care of business. Obviously, today this is a great game to really kick off the championship week of festivity. Two great games on our Friday. So you got the Conference USA championship at 6, and then you got the Pac-12 championship to really kick it off. The last time that we'll see the Pac-12 championship guys going their separate ways. But yeah, this is two of the high you're seeing in the Conference USA. I've really been impressed in Mexico State, like you mentioned, get those two early losses, get the loss to Liberty. Then outside of that, obviously, we're all going to talk about them going on the road to Auburn. That was definitely a great game for them. That defense really stepped up. I feel like that their defense is going to have to do the same. Liberty, like you mentioned, their high-powered offense. Chadwell is the coach there. Liberty is going to be a powerhouse in the Conference USA. The Conference USA be getting some new members next season, like pretty much every conference is next season. But yeah, I think that New Mexico State, I wouldn't be surprised if they can cover the minus 10.5. I probably wouldn't touch it. I think that this game could go either way. But give me the Flames at home. Liberty, I think that they finish off the season 13-0 and pretty much a high scoring shootout, if you want to call it. But I'll say 31-24. I think Liberty gets the touchdown victory. So I guess give me New Mexico State to cover. I think that they're a very physical football team. Jared Kill has done a terrific job with this program. And if they get the opportunity to get this 10th win this week, get a bowl game and, get 11th win. And speaking of bowl games, we do have one already locked in. The Hawaii Bowl is going to be featuring Coastal Carolina and San Jose State. So that'll be an interesting matchup out there in the islands.
Yeah, absolutely. Talking about Hawaii a minute ago, big little vacay for them. We talk about our vacay bowls every season, so we'll jump into our
We don't get the
vacay bowl
Bahamas
here in a
Bowl
little bit.
anymore.
Yeah, so uh, man, I wish we still had it, but no, a lot of bowl games have changed, and we'll jump into that, of course, next week. But on to our other game for tonight. Probably the most anticipated most anticipated, I think, conference championship that we've had all season long. Oregon. Now, this is interesting. Oregon is ranked 5th. Washington is ranked 3rd. Oregon has lost one game. Well, they've lost this game to Washington. That is the only team that they've lost to. It was a great shootout game. That game was fantastic watching that one. So I think we're going to get another fantastic one tonight. Of course, this game is in Vegas. It's in Las Vegas at Allegiant Stadium there. So I think that this game is really going to determine a lot of things. First, I think it could determine the Heisman Trophy. It could determine who makes the playoff. And it could determine who's that next team to make the next step as both of these teams go to the Big Ten next year. Who makes the big next step in recruiting and says, I want to be a part of that team that's coming in and really wreck the teams that have been the crucial part of the Big Ten for a long time. So I think this is the first big step and also the last step in, the legacy of the Pac-12. I mean, we've had so many great players come from the Pac-12 over the years, both from these teams, have had really good players that have come out of these schools. I mean, with Oregon, Marcus Mariota was huge coming out of Oregon and, a big college player. Of course, the NFL hasn't panned out much to what, he wanted it to be, but, we see it all the time. I said, look, that's why college football is so great, because you can have so many really good players in college football and they leave their legacy in college football. So this is one here where both of these quarterbacks could leave their legacy in college football, or they could go on to the next level and be fantastic. I think they both are going to go to the next level, and this is really the time for that to happen. So Bo Nix on the side of Oregon here up against Michael Penix. I mean, these are two of the three dogs in the race, I think, for the Heisman Trophy right now. So we will see what happens here tonight. My opinion, I think that it's going to be interesting for Oregon. I think if Oregon struggles to run the football, this is where they get into trouble. Running the football late in the season for them has been amazing. I mean, they've ran hard. I mean, their football team, their front their front six, and they just absolutely just pound the line. So it is it's going to be really tough for Washington to stop that. If they do stop it, I think they put Bo Nix in throwing scenarios, passing scenarios. That's where turnovers can happen. I mean, it just anything can happen there. I think Washington's defense is the best defense in the Pac-12 this season. I think that's what got them to this point. Is that defense? I know their offense can score a ton of points, but you got to be able to get stops and put Penix on the field with that Husky offense. For me, I think Washington honestly has the upper hand. If you're crazy, you take the Oregon to cover the 9.5, but I don't think there's any way that Oregon's going to cover 9.5 points. The safest bet on this game would, of course, be Washington to cover that 9.5 to keep it within 9.5. But yeah, I honestly think Washington could win this game outright. I'm going to take the Huskies. I think that they can do it. It's going to be a tall task for Oregon to come over there in a neutral site game and kind of take over with the rematch. So I'm going to take Washington. High scoring shootout though, so it's going to be 45-42. I think we're going to see a lot of points.
Yeah, a lot of offensive firepower. Yeah, it's always tough to see somebody sweep the season series. It feels like that's probably the toughest thing to do in all sports. That 9.5 line. I mean, give credit to Oregon, but that saying that they're just discrediting Washington. They're going to feed off of this. They're playing that underdog mentality, even though they beat them. And honestly, Oregon probably should have beat them in the first place. Like if Dan Lanning didn't go for it on fourth down, they could have punted it. And then Michael Penix, who knows how long they need to drive down the field. But Lanning decided to go for the jugular to just try to end the game right there. Didn't work out, and then they still had the chance to sit in overtime, and the kicker missed the field goal. Wouldn't surprise me. It comes down to another field goal opportunity for both of these teams. Like you mentioned, Oregon with Bo Nix, this could be his Heisman moment, especially with a victory here. Like I mentioned, whoever wins this one, they feel like a lock to me. The way that they're built, I think that Washington's resume is far and away better than Oregon has had. Oregon definitely has some quality wins. I don't know if you want to count Colorado as a top 25 victory. They played when they were in the top 25, and now Colorado is only a 4-1 team. Then you have Utah. They were a top 20 team at the time, but then you also have the loss to Washington, but you cannot avenge that. But this feels like the safest to me that whoever wins this game will be in the top 4 for the college football playoff. And I go Washington. I think that they get it done here. I think that their defense has been improving ever since that Oregon game. Yes, they've had struggles with Arizona and Stanford, but they also had a struggle with Washington State. But that was a rivalry game, with Cam Ward. He's one of the most underrated quarterbacks. He's in the transfer portal. We'll see where he goes, because I've heard reports that schools are already offering him millions and millions of dollars in NIL deals. But this is going to be the battle of offenses. I think that both defenses are talented, but when you put Michael Penix on the field, it feels like both of them are just going to pass each for 3 or 4 touchdowns in this game. Could even get into the 40s. I'm going to just stick into the 30s, but it would not shock me if it does get into the 40s. I think there's talent on all. Dylan Johnson, the Washington running back, he's definitely been a factor. Bucky Irvin, factor too. So I think this is going to be a very close game. This is probably going to be the game of the week, and it's going to be on Friday night. So I'm definitely going to join that. It's not Pac-12 after dark. I'll actually be able to watch a Pac-12 game without falling asleep at the half. But I think Washington wins this one. I'll say 38-34. They get the victory and move on to the dance.
Yeah, I mean, 2 close games for both of us there. I think it's 2 close picks for that game, and it's going to really determine, like we said, the makeup for a long time to come, not just at the end of the season. So we will see what happens there, of course, in that Pac-12 after dark, not so much after dark. But moving on to tomorrow, I mean, this is really the meat and potatoes of it all right here. The Big 12, of course, features one team who won't be in the Big 12 anymore. This is their last shot, really, for the Big 12 championship. It's been quite a while since they've been to a Big 12 championship, and this is their moment to come back and attempt to do it and win this game. So, for the other side of the ball, real quick, number 18, Oklahoma State, the Cowboys are on their way to Arlington, Texas, to face off against number 7 Texas. They've got a little short journey there for them. The Longhorns open as a 15-point favorite. Knock my socks off, 15 points. That's a lot of points, especially against Oklahoma State, who's a pesky football team. They're better than what their ranking says, I think, about them. Right now, at this point in the season, I think they closed out the season really well. Shaky start to the season, and I think that's where their ranking comes in there at 18. But closing it out, they played pretty good football. So, it's Mike Gundy has them playing pretty well. I mean, I feel that that's definitely a team that's on the rise, and we'll see kind of dominate the Big 12 in the future. But of course, Texas. I mean, Texas has scored an ungodly amount of points uh, late in the season, even early in the season. Running the football, they just have a really strong running game. I don't know if their running back's back or healthy. I don't know if his season's over. I think you probably know more on that, Tyler, than I
Yeah,
do.
he's out. He had a
Yeah, so
torn ACL.
I figured he was out, but I wasn't sure what the injury was. But it's gonna be tough for them not being able to run the football with a dominant back who looked to be really good and a really good college career and definitely an NFL prospect. But um, yeah, I just whoever controls the defensive side of the ball in this game better, I think, wins the game because points are going to be it's going to be a cakewalk, I think, to score points here if neither team shows any lick of defense. And I know we love our offensive shootouts, but I also like to see a little bit of defense sometimes. Um, like I know people get like hyped by touchdowns. I get hyped by sacks. Like that's like I'm just a defense guy. Um, so this one I'm going to go wild. Let's go crazy. I'm going to take Oklahoma State to win it. I think that they can do it. It would absolutely shake up the entire top, 10 teams, for the bowl season and everything. Because if Texas loses this game, well, I'm sorry, but they're out of the New Year's Six, and there's no chance to make the playoff at that point. Hard to believe, thinking that Texas at 7 still has a chance to make the playoff. That's pretty wild. And I think you have a wild take on this game, what you're gonna say, like the outcome of this game for on the Texas side, but like for me, I think that the Cowboys are just a tough, pesky team, and I think that they have Texas's number in this game, and they're looking for a big one. So I'm going to go with the Pokes.
Yeah, this is a really, really good game. I think that the key for Texas's defense, if you cannot stop Ollie Gordon the third, that man has been running hog wild all season, especially, Oklahoma State, if you don't forget about it, team that start like 1-2, 1-3. They lost like 37 to South Alabama, and South Alabama season 6-6. So there you go. But yeah, I think that I've really been impressed with this Oklahoma State team. Definitely not impressed with them last week, though. BYU really controlled that game for 3/4. That defense, if they play like that, this is going to be a Texas runaway. I think that the way that Quinn Ewers, he's just getting healthier and healthier. I think that even with Brooks out, I think that AD Mitchell is going to be the guy that Quinn Ewers is going to go to. Obviously, a good receivers. I feel like if you have defenses, you have to get the advantage to Texas. I think that if you really look at the full plate of the season that this Texas defense has been through, I think that they're the better defense of Oklahoma State. Now, that doesn't mean that Oklahoma State can wake up and shut down this Texas defense. Definitely have, but I think that Oklahoma State definitely covers that. But give me the Longhorns to win this. With a win, I think that they need a little bit of help. Obviously, they will get some help on Friday night. Whoever loses, they will jump ahead of them. So they pretty much lose. Florida State, a loss would definitely help them. I think that's really the formula. If you want Texas to make it to the playoff, you need, obviously the Pac-12 itself, and you need Florida State, a team that doesn't have Jordan Travis. I'm sure that we'll get to that scenario. Talk about our final college football playoff predictions, because I'm sure there's a lot of scenarios here to run through. But I want to at least one defensive game, and I think that if you're looking at one, this is it. I think that Texas wins this one. But I think Mike Gundy and the boys, I think that they're a pesky bunch. I think they cover the 15, but Texas still gets the victory and rides off into the sunset before they go off to the big bad SEC. So give me Texas to win this game 20-20.
So Tyler's going with the Cinderella story before reality kicks in the off season, and then they
Oh
go to
yeah,
the SEC and just it's
last
absolute hard knock
championship you'll win
football.
in probably quite some time.
It's going to be very tough for Texas in the future
Yeah,
for the SEC
I don't
to
know. I feel like they're
prove too much.
better off than what Oklahoma is. I think that if you really
Oh,
look at the two new teams, I mean Texas with Steve Sarkisian, I think that they're definitely in the right direction. And, they could be that number 3, number 4 team coming in the SEC. I feel like Georgia and Alabama are your number 2. And really, Texas could either be in front or behind LSU. Obviously, you see the stuff in the background, they're behind.
I mean, every off season it's inflated with all the Texas stuff, and this felt like the season where they do it again and all this stuff, and they inflate it, and they actually held on and did really well this season, 11-1, your only loss. Uh, you know, coming very interesting loss to Oklahoma, just kind of interesting. I don't know, but we'll see what happens with that game. Of course, that's going to be a great one to open our day tomorrow. Moving on to, well, it's kind of early for this one, but we're moving on to the big bad SEC kind of early. I won't spend very long. Oh, we're going Mac.
Mac.
We're going Maction. Never mind. Sorry. Pump the brakes. Pump the brakes. We're going Maction. Little Maction.
Yeah, we're
I'm
going in order of when the game is. So this is another 11 a.m.
That's my bad. I'm sorry. I'm losing my mind. Sorry, I was looking at the top 25. I wasn't looking at all of them. My bad.
Wow, can't
Sorry,
forget
folks.
about the Mac.
Can't forget about the Can't forget about the group of 5. No, this is going to be a good one here. 10-2, Miami, Ohio up against 11-1 Toledo. Toledo is the 8-point favorite. Look, I have learned one thing about the MAC and Maction, and this is the one thing I've learned. You never, and I mean never, pick against the Toledo Rockets in a conference championship or a bowl game. Ever. I'm taking Toledo to cover the 8 points to do it. It's down to 7, but I'm gonna pick them to cover it and run away with it. I think that they can do it. Score prediction. Let's go 35-14. I think that they absolutely steamroll Miami, Ohio.
Yeah, I've definitely been impressed with both of these teams. Miami of Ohio, they've had an impressive season, but like you mentioned, whenever I get them in the MAC championship, I just have to do it. I played with this team so many times on the old NCAA games. They were definitely one of my favorite teams growing up. So give me the Rockets. I think that they cover. Let's go 34-24. This is definitely going to be a fun environment at Ford Field too. This has definitely been a long-standing tradition for the MAC. So I think this is going to be a fun environment for both teams. But I think that Toledo, they get on the mountaintop on the MAC.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting to think that the MAC has 2 teams from the state of Ohio playing,
Yeah,
in
impressive.
the conference championship. So very impressive for the state of Ohio and for both of these football teams. It'll be a fantastic game, 11 a.m. tomorrow. Let's get to our 2 o'clock game tomorrow. One of the better group of 5 games, I think. This one is one of the better group of 5 games. I know, I get it. Boise somehow snuck in with a 7-6 record. And somehow they're the 2.5-point favorite. So talk about a wild season, dude. I just unbelievably wild season for them to be 7-6 and being a favorite for the conference championship up against UNLV. UNLV, on the other hand, was 9-3 this year. Definitely had a decent season. I think they took the next step, really, in kind of becoming a really good football team. I don't know what's going to happen in the future, of course, out west with the Pac-12 and the Mountain West and everything that's going to happen there. I think we'll find out a lot in the offseason about what's going to happen. But for me, it's just a weird matchup. UNLV 9-3, and for them not to be the favorite in this game is pretty wild and bizarre to me. Granted, this game is at Allegiant Stadium, so they're playing at home. I mean, UNLV's playing at home, and I think that holds a hefty price here. If it's at the Blue Field, I think you and I can both agree. If this game is on
Putting
the
my
Blue Field
bankroll on.
in Boise, I'm putting the kitchen sink on Boise State to win this. But on the other hand, UNLV's playing at home in Allegiant Stadium. I'm going to take UNLV to win it and go with the upset. I mean, 2.5 is pretty close, but I think that UNLV is going to cover the 2.5 the other direction and take home the Mountain West Championship.
Man, if there's like a Raiders game too, this would be like 3 straight days that they would have to change the field up. So props to those who do that because that's definitely a hard job to do. Because you got the Pac-12 championship, and then a couple of hours. Oh, we got to get the field ready for this. So then a couple of hours, got to get the Raiders field ready. Well, I think they're on the bye week, so they're spared of that. But still, that's definitely a tough job. But yeah, like you mentioned, I mean, I don't know what Vegas is doing. I definitely like the 2 Vegas games in Vegas. I think that is completely the point spread. Now we could definitely be proven, but really the Mountain West championship was decided. It was definitely bizarre too. They let computers decide who the 2 teams were because it was Boise State, UNLV, and San Jose State. San Jose State, we already saw this matchup actually last Saturday. San Jose State took down UNLV in Vegas. But so yeah, Boise State, we everybody who really follows college football know what this program is about. Definitely surprising. I thought that we would have saw Air Force and Fresno State. That was my preseason pick. Both of those teams really faltered in the second half of the season. But I'm going to go with UNLV. This was one of my best scrambled. This was also my upset. So not really a pun here. I'm going all in on UNLV here out there in Vegas. I think that they see an opportunity with their they were going to roll the slots whenever they get a pick or fumble. So give me UNLV this one. It's going to be close, probably a defensive game. I'll go. This is weird. Let's go 25-24 and a 1-point victory for UNLV.
Wow. Yeah, you brought up a good point. I thought for sure that San Jose State would be playing in this game. Um, I mean, if you look at it, they're a better team in points scored against, Boise. Uh, and also, I mean, San Jose State they're riding a 6-game winning streak, and
Yeah.
they came up short. I mean, that's crazy to me. Like that you ride a 6-game winning streak and you basically tie the team in every single category, but you still don't get the nod. And the reason they don't get the nod is because they lost to Boise. I mean, that's really the reason why they're not there. And that's tough to think that happened. Um, but dude, early on in the season, I thought Wyoming had a chance. I mean, I really did think Wyoming had a chance. They finished the season 8-4. I mean, that's really impressive for them to do that in an 8-4 season. Air Force finished 8-4. They were on the run for the undefeated season. I mean, just absolutely fell into pieces late in the season. They lost their last 4 games of the season. I mean, 8-0, and you lost to Army. You only scored 3 points at home. Well, in Mile High Stadium. Then you go to Hawaii and you lose to Hawaii. And then you come back home and get beat by UNLV at home. And then you lose to Boise to finish the season on the road. Oh my God. That's rough. I mean, that's a rough end of the season there. I mean, talk about they look dominant. I mean, they look like they were going to run away with the Mountain West and just never amounted to it. But both good picks here. We went with the underdog pick here for this one as well, in the same stadium, tonight and tomorrow. I mean, we both went with the underdog team. So maybe Vegas is trying to tell us something. I don't know. Who knows? But now I can't jump the gun. Here it is. The big bad SEC. One more time for you folks. Georgia is the 5-point favorite versus the number 8 Alabama Crimson Tide. Yeah, in Atlanta. Fantastic. Yay. They need to move this game. I really think they do need to move this game big.
Well, it's
time.
locked into like 2032 now.
It's so bad, dude. I can't. I think, honestly, I think this game belongs in Orlando. I think they should do this game in Orlando.
Just rotation. Like you could do New Orleans, you could do Nashville, you could do Dallas, you could do Orlando.
I think this game could find a home in Nashville when that stadium is done. I think they're going to find a home with that stadium when it's all said and done. That thing is impressive. I think with the schematics I've seen, holy, that's going to be wild. That thing looks like a spaceship. And I thought the Raider Stadium looked like a spaceship. That's going to be crazy for the Titans. But definitely, I think they could find a home there. For this one here, screw spending a ton of time on it. We're not going with the roll. No, we're not doing that. We're going with the dogs. The dogs are going to win, cover the 5 points. I think the dogs win by a touchdown. I think this game is going to be a ground and pound game. Honestly, defense is going to be the absolute premium for this game. So I'm going to go with a 24-17 win for Georgia. I don't think Alabama scores a ton of points. They didn't score a ton of points last week, really, in all seriousness. I mean, but I don't think they're going to be able to score into the 20s in this game. So I'm going to go with Georgia to win it by a touchdown.
Yeah, these are the two best defenses. I think I'm going to agree with your score that I had. I'm going to go Georgia too. I think that it's in Atlanta. They hardly lose in that dang stadium. I mean, golly, that's pretty much a home environment. And then if they win that one, they get to mosey on down I-10 and go on the way to the Sugar Bowl and face off whoever wins, who's the 4th seed in New Orleans. But Alabama, they got an absolute miracle in Jordan Hare. The 4th and 31, Auburn only rushing 2 guys. I said about this, like how they screwed up of only sitting 2. It was a game that should have sent Alabama out of it. I think even with a win, I'm not even sure that Alabama in the top 4. I think, if Texas wins, there's no way. There's already a roadblock there because Texas beat you, and the head-to-head has to matter. And if it doesn't, then why have this stupid playoff committee in the first place? I think that the committee is stupid anyway. You listen to Boo Cornigan or the 30-minute to an hour show that ESPN puts at us, just imagine, I hate this upcoming selection show. It's a 4-hour show. It's like the first 30 minutes, they go around the round table of we go around the 7 teams. Like, they're probably going to watch. They're going to put somebody in Ohio State and Columbus and have an interview with Ryan Day. We only the number 2 team by 6 points, and we should be in. It's like, why are you even there? They have no opportunity to get in, and then the next 15 minutes you talk who should be number 1, number 2, number 3, number 4, and then you're like, oh wait, oh look, our producer over here finally has the rankings after 12 hours after it was, but that we got the top 4. Let's spend 2 hours on it, and then a couple of hours, you get the New Year's 6 reveal, and then boom, it's and then they talk about who's, they talk about again the college football play. It's like a 5 show, just BS. This should be an hour show. Give me the New Year's 6, give me the CFP top. You have to wait 2 full hours to get the rest of the top 25. That's absurd. That's my rant. I'll get more into it when we get into the college. I think that's just stupid of how long that show is, but give me the dogs to win. I'll say 24-17 as well.
On to the next one here.
Gosh,
AAC.
I could rant all day on that.
Yeah. Off to the AAC here. The American Atlantic Conference. But of course, let's call it the American blah, blah, blah. 2 teams that are not the Atlantic Ocean whatsoever. Whatever. They're where they belong for the most part. So, please don't put Tulane back in the SEC where they used to be. Please, God, oh my God, for the Lord above us, please, gosh, don't do that. Tulane is the 3-point favorite at home. Here's what's weird, and of course they're playing at home. SMU can put the kitchen sink on just about anybody on any given weekend. And the odd part about it all, Tyler, and the shocking part is that according to the FPI, which we love ourselves, the FPI. Oh, God. Yeah. The so FPI. Tulane only has a 27.5% chance to win this game. I don't know. I'm just putting that out there. So the FPI says something about this game. Before the FPI ever made its changes, I took SMU to win this game. I'm going to stick with it. I'm taking SMU to win. The old Rumble ponies over there are going to get it done. So I'm going to go with SMU. I think that the Stangs get it done on the road at Tulane. I think they knock Tulane outside of the top 25 for the playoff. And I think this is how we see Liberty get into the New Year's 6 right here.
I might have to add the new. We're gonna do a New Year's Six prediction too with our COP prediction, especially now because of Tulane pretty much getting out of the dance. So I'm interested in the other field of bowl games that you have in that. So maybe we'll do that at the end. But this is going to be points and points, and more points, and then there's going to be some more points after that. This is like a full-on course. You get the appetizer, the full-on menu, and then you get the after that. But yeah, Tulane's defense. So I'm going to ride with them. I think that they're definitely the most improved defense in the AAC. They just ran through the table. If they had Michael Pratt, they would have beat Ole Miss. I'm going to stand on that rock. They really played Ole Miss close. That game got away from them in the fourth quarter whenever Ole Miss defense really stepped up. But yeah, this is definitely a different Tulane team than we saw last year. But this is still a Tulane team with Willie Fritz. We'll see if Fritz stays at Tulane. I think that he should. I think that he's starting to build a monster out there in New Orleans. SMU, they've looked good at times this season. They played really, really well. After Oklahoma boat raced, some team had put up 70. SMU held them to 24 in that game. It was like a 24-11 game. I remember that because we had Oklahoma minus 16, and they barely sneaked out that bet. But I'm going to go with the home team. It's definitely a tougher environment out there in the Big East. I'm sure it's already sold out. But I think that SMU, they're definitely not going to be afraid. Offense is going to travel. But I think that Tulane wins this one. I'll say, I feel like it's absolute sin if you don't say the winner gets into the 40s in this one. Let's have some American. I'll say 41-38. So Tulane gets the push, I guess, in the betting world.
Okay. Yeah. Here's the next game here that really nobody is going to steer me in a direction away from, I think, the team that I have absolutely just picked every step of the way. And they're the home record. I talked about it last week. I'm not going to talk about it again. I promise I won't do it. Troy's playing essentially at home for this one, a 5.5-point favorite. App State, they're covering it the other direction. App State's going to get it done. They're going to win it. They're going to win by 2 friggin' touchdowns in this game. The Troy Trojans do not have a chance, a snowball chance in hell to win this game. I'm going with App State, the Mountaineers, the best Mountaineers right here. Get out of here, West Virginia. App State's going to win it big time here. I think this is the upset of all upsets in the championship weekend.
App State, I feel like it's a popular pick whenever people look. I hope people definitely look. I feel like we're like, I don't know if anybody else on here does a podcast about the Sun Belt, but I feel like we're one of the people, like the lone people that talk about this conference every single week. We are Sun Belt, Fun Belt till we die. App State at Troy. Troy 5.5. I think that's definitely an interesting line. Troy started off the season pretty slow. Kansas State. They got boat raced in that game. They gave up 42 points, and they had that really rod of defense not being that Troy defense that we saw last year. Then the second half, I mean, golly, they just breezed through that division. Nobody even close to them. South Alabama, I thought they were going to be a closer team, but nope. I mean, Troy absolutely take care of business. But I'm going to, in pity of James Madison, once again getting screwed by the NCAA and not getting in the Sun Belt Championship. I know it gives me some clarity. App State at least beat them. Last year, I don't know, Coastal Carolina, they got in. They got absolute boat race last year. So that was a pity pick here. A pity pick. I think that Troy at home with their defense, I think that this is going to be a defense. I think that App State's defense is solid too. Give me Troy to win this one. I'll say like 23-17.
Okay. Yeah. Going the other way. Yeah. I feel this is just App State till I die. I feel like moment. So that's why I'm sticking with App State. But yeah, I definitely can see where you can pick Troy, especially when they're playing at home like this. Getting away from this one, let's go to our other one here. The team that the 22-point favorite, I don't think is even going to score more than 24 points. So 22 points means that Iowa wouldn't have to score more than a safety in order for Michigan to cover. No, I think this game here, it is a all consensus pick for me to pick Iowa to cover the 22 points. I just don't see Michigan running away with this. I just don't see it. They really haven't ran away with too much late in the season, so I don't see them running away, with the exception of Michigan State, which, gosh forbid, it was an in-state rival matchup, and they put up 49 on them and beat them 49-0. But this one here, I just don't think so. Michigan's, of course, the 22-point favorite is the number 2 team. They win, they're in. They lose, they're out, in my opinion. Iowa is the 16th ranked team in the country. Iowa with a big kick and win last week at Nebraska. Just, my gosh. I don't know what to say about their season. Somehow they're 10-2. I don't know. I don't know how they did it. They didn't score a single point against Penn State this season. 31-0. They got absolutely ran over. But they somehow made it to 16. I don't know how they're at 16, really, dude. I just don't. I don't know. But it seems like a team that belongs in the 20s, even though they went 10-2.
I have no idea how this team went 10-2.
I don't either, and I don't think Kurt Ferentz even knows how they went 10-2. I think one of the reporters asked him after the game at Nebraska, and he was like, I don't even know what to say. Like, he was just like, I don't know how they did it. So this is a team that was bound, I think, for the 7-5 season, or the 6-6 season, and just somehow squeaked it out. I just don't know. Their quarterback looks like he had an entire jar of peanut butter before a game, and just like I don't know. He's a big dude, and he looks like he belongs on the other side of the ball as a linebacker, because that guy is a absolute truck. But no, this game here, I think I was going to keep it close, really, honestly. I'm going to pick Michigan to win it, obviously, but I think Iowa keeps it really close with them. I'll say 10 points, they keep it, and they're going to cover the 22 for Iowa. Let's go 24-14. I think that's a good pick. I kind of like that. I think 10 points is good. 24-14 feels like a Big Ten score, so I'm gonna roll with that.
Well, thank the Lord that we don't have to ever see this matchup again in the Big Ten championship.
Ugh.
Whenever they get rid of the divisions, and we'll probably either have Michigan, Ohio State in the rematch, or maybe James Franklin and the boys can win a big game for once in their lives and get to the championship again. Or maybe we see an Oregon or Washington, but you never know with them, because Michael Penix, he's gone. Mo Nix, he's probably going to be gone. So those are two new quarterbacks out the hell. And the way that USC's looked this season, I think they're going to be even close, especially if their defense doesn't play a lick of defense in this conference.
USC
I'm not going to spend too much time. Don't overlook this. If you try to even remember that Iowa's going to stay close in this game, you have to watch a game of football that Michigan has played this season. Michigan, we know that they can win the Big Ten championship. We know that they can beat Ohio State now. But can they win a playoff game? The past 2 years, the first year that they got into the playoff, they got, Georgia. Georgia handled them. Last year, the Cinderella story of themselves, TCU, like they put all of their chips in one basket before Georgia won. I feel like Georgia is just beating the crap out of everybody once you get into the playoff. But give me Michigan in this one. I'll say Michigan gets 30. I think that if Penn State could do it, so can Michigan. I think that Blake Corum is just going to run it up Iowa's throats again. So give me 30. You know what? I'll be like Santa Claus and give Iowa, it's the giving season, I'll give Iowa 3 points.
Okay. Yeah. That's so nice of you to give them 3 points at the end of it all. But yeah, touchdowns will be tough to score in this game. I think for Iowa, it'll be tough for them to move the ball. That's why I only have them scoring 2 somehow. Maybe a defensive touchdown at this point. I don't know. Their defense is a lock to score a touchdown, it feels like, every week. Here's to our last game of the championship weekend. ACC. Louisville. I think this is the best game for the PAC, or not for the PAC, for conference championship weekend. I think this is the best game right here. Number 14, Louisville, the Cardinals are headed to Charlotte to face off against the 4th-ranked Florida State Seminoles. That says 1.5. It is down to 1 point.
Something's got to be going on. Like, is Rodemaker playing or is he not?
I have no idea what's going on here. But I feel that it's going to be interesting for Louisville to score the football. I think Florida State's defense has to show up in this game. Louisville held Duke to 0 points last week, and the week before they held VT to 3. So Louisville's got a defense. I mean, they've got a really good defense. So if Florida State wants to win this game, they got to get the ball in the hands of their running back because they will not have any, and I mean any time in the pocket to throw the football. There is no chance for Florida State to stay in the pocket and throw the football. The way the front seven is for Louisville, they will come after you and blitz the living garbage out of you. They're top 10 in blitzes. Number of times blitz this season in college football. I think that they honestly are going to come after you any which way to get a stop. So for Florida State, it's going to have to be ball security is a big thing in this one. Does Florida State have the ball security? I think so. I think Florida State can win it. I'm going to take the Noles to barely squeak it out. I don't know if it's going to be 1 point or 3. It could be. I mean, that's why I don't think you mess with the spread whatsoever, even though it's 1 point, folks. I just don't think you mess with it because it's so close. So I'm going to go with the Noles to win it. Let's go 31-28. I think they get a 3-point victory. But I think best game for conference championship weekend right here is this late game.
Yeah, I think that the way that this line has been moving down, there's definitely some concerns if Tate Rodemaker is going to play in this game or not. We will see if he does. He did have that late hit against the Florida game that took him out for a couple of drives, and then he was back on the field. So Florida State needs Rodemaker to play in this one because they're already down Jordan Travis, and you can't be down second string. Then you got to go to a freshman quarterback in this scenario. That's not always. I know that you have the defense to really keep it in this game. Trey Benson, he's going to have to do what he did against Florida because that's what really vaulted Florida State over Florida because I feel like Florida really controlled that game for probably about a half, and then Florida State really controlled their destiny. Louisville, off. I mean, they just lost to Kentucky at the Governor's Cup. This is going to be a team going to be ready and focused. I think that, this is definitely an even matchup. I think that 14-4, I think these are two evenly matched teams. I think that these are two of the best teams in Carolina, the way that they've been looking. They've fallen off. NC State, I would have loved NC State to have a piece of Florida State. I probably would have picked the Wolfpack, but I think that a lot of people are just rooting against Florida State because they do not want to see another blowout of like Georgia versus Florida State or Michigan. Like whoever gets Florida State, I mean, it's like the spread's going to be at least 10 points because this is below that. I mean, this is a team without Jordan Travis. I'm still on the mindset that even without Jordan Travis, if you go 13-0, if you run the table, win the ACC, that you're in. But obviously, if you lose this game, you're out. Because there ain't no way that the playoff committee is going to put Florida State. They're already at number 4. So there's no wiggle room for Florida State the way that you look at it. You get the win to really get in, and hopefully the committee doesn't screw you. On the other hand, Bill is already locked into the Orange Bowl because the Orange Bowl has ACC. I'm not saying that Louisville have anything to play for. They would love to win an ACC championship for the first time, and who knows how long it's been. I've really been on the fence on this one. They're really, if Tate Rodemaker going to play, is he not? I think in the end, this is going to be an ugly football game. I mean, there's not going to be many points scored in this one. I think that Louisville's defense coming off of probably their worst defensive performances of the season. I think that Florida State wins this one. I'll say like 23-20, but I would not be shocked if the Cards pull off the upset. I wouldn't even call it up. I think that Louisville definitely has an outstanding chance to pull off this win.
Yep. I honestly think that either team has a chance, of course, in that one. Let's jump right into our final CFB predictions. I won't spend too long on it, only because I think the top 4 teams in the country right now, as you look at it, are going to be the top 4 teams that are going to make it. Now, way they're ranked, I'm going to kind of mess around with a little bit. Georgia's going to finish number 1, I think, because I have them winning. Number 2, I'm going to go with Washington. I think if Washington wins this game tonight, they're the number 2 team in the country. Michigan, because they're playing Iowa, I think it can be close. I think they'll drop to 3. In Florida State, if they just win this game, I think they're in, like you said. So they're my fourth team.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think I had the same four teams. There's plenty of scenarios that you can get it. I agree with you. I like the Washington bump to number two. If Washington beats Oregon, they would have the best resume in college football. You could not say anything about that. And what's their best win? Their two best wins are against Penn State and Ohio State. Now, don't get me wrong; those are two good, really quality. But if you beat twice, especially if the way that they do it, they do bump up Washington to number two. Do they? They probably don't. So I will leave Michigan at number two. Washington will be number three. Florida State will be at four. And oh my gosh, that Georgia Florida State game, I don't know how close that would be. I think that they're deserving, but I think that if you're really looking at ratings wise, it'd be a good ratings game. I think that Georgia would probably win that one pretty convincingly.
Yeah, I mean, you really just don't know what can happen there. Anything really can happen at this point. That's why we're picking our games, and Lord knows the scenarios that could come that way. Let's close it out here with our best bets of championship week here. Tyler, I'll let you take it away first. Give us your pick and a bonus pick here.
Yeah, I'm going to go with one of my best bets of the weekend. I'm going to go UNLV to cover that plus 2.5. If you're feeling frisky, you want to do it, go with the money line. But if you want to go for safety, go not Boise State, UNLV to cover that plus 2.5. I think that at home, you're in Vegas. UNLV coming off of the loss against San Jose State. I think that they get back on track and get that 10th win of the season.
Yeah, for me, I think best bet for the weekend is the SMU Tulane game. I'm going to take SMU to cover the 3 points and win that game outright. Honestly, think that they can do that. Their offense is a powerhouse. It's going to be hard for Tulane to stop them. My bonus bet, let's go with Iowa to cover against Michigan. I think that they're going to cover the 22. They won't win the game, but they'll definitely cover it on the 22 side. Just too many points for me. It's going to be hard to keep it at a 22 margin, I think, for Michigan. But Iowa, I think, keeps it close. There's no way they're going to run away with this game. I don't think they're going to make it an embarrassing loss for really what seems like their last appearance in the Big Ten championship.
Yeah, I'm going to go for another underdog to cover. Give me Oklahoma State to cover that plus 15 against Texas. I think that Texas wins this game, but I think that Oklahoma State get into the Big 12 championship with Mike Gundy. I think that you give them, days to prepare for this one with Holly Gordon the way that he's been running. As long as he can get going, I think that Oklahoma State wins this one. Their defense definitely has to travel, has to play better than what they did against BYU. But I think that Oklahoma State can at least cover that 15.
Yeah. Well, that's going to close it out, for championship week. I think that we got a lot of good games to talk about in the future for our bowl show next week. Might have to break it up in two shows, just depending on how long it is, because there's going to be a lot of bowl games to talk about. So we'll probably break it up into two separate shows for the bowl week. But of course, guys, watch some good games this weekend. It's going to be really good. Place your bets on some good games. I mean, there's a chance that you come away with some cash. I mean, in these games. So with next week being there, big bowl weeks, talking about all that, we'll get to our coaching carousel, I think, next week. Talk a little bit about that because it'll be our last CFB chance. Really, it's not going to matter after the next 2 days. So won't be much to talk about there other than the top 4 teams that'll be competing for the playoff. And then outside of that, New Year's Six Bowl and those vacay bowls that we'll be talking about. So we will see you guys again next week for our what feels like second to last show of the season. So we will see you guys again next week.